so that we can get started. Okay. So we're going to talk about relationships and what they're based on. And I hope you can see my PowerPoint. A lot of times, physical and sexual assaults or threats to commit them are the most apparent forms of domestic violence. But domestic violence is a pattern of controlling behaviors used to maintain power in a relationship by one partner over the other. So while it's more common hearing of women becoming victims, men are also victims of domestic violence. While each case is unique, abusers use a range of behavior to control their partners, and that includes physical, emotional, psychological, sexual, financial, and spiritual abuse. So often it's difficult to identify various forms or patterns of abuse, particularly when they are indirect or not as obvious as physical or sexual assault. But I will be sharing today those behaviors. So we're going to take a closer look at the behaviors that make up an unhealthy relationship. Based on power and control, like threat and intimidation, emotional abuse, isolation, minimizing, denying, and blaming, using children and reproduction, economic abuse, dominance, coercion and threats, spiritual abuse, cultural abuse, using immigration status, possessiveness and harassment, manipulation, limiting independence, academic abuse, physical abuse, and sexual abuse. A lot of these behaviors are going to overlap as we talk about them, but it will give you a big picture of what to look for in your relationships. And I didn't mention this before, but if you have a comment or a question, go ahead and use the chat box. And then at the end of this presentation, I'll go ahead and answer some of those questions. But first, let's talk about the components of a will for a minute. And I know that you may think, where's this going? I promise I'm going somewhere with it. You have the hub of the wheel, which is the center part of the wheel, and you have the tension spokes that are attached to the hub, that are attached to the rim that holds the rubber tire on. None of these components work without each one of those in place, and they all play a very important role in making sure the wheel is doing what it's designed to do. And wheels go forward and they go backward and they take you where you're wanting to go. Now, in comparison to relationships, there are many different components to a relationship as well, much like the tire, and they are all very important. When the spoke and the hub and the rim are all tire messed up, there's some major consequences. And that could include like a devastating wreck could occur, which could possibly lead to death. And when those things happen, you will not reach your destination. And in comparison to relationships, you will not reach the destination that you want. So with that in mind, imagine a wheel, and I've got it up on the screen, with the wheel with the power and control as the hub, and then the outside of the tires, physical violence and sexual assault. And in between, we've got all of our spokes that we like to call red flags, and this is will point to, and these behaviors will point to danger ahead, so that when you're looking at relationships and how they work, you can see these red flags. So let's take a minute and talk about some of these spokes or red flags. The first one is threats and intimidation. So when you threaten and intimidate someone, you might frighten or make someone afraid. So what might threaten and intimidation look like in a relationship? Well, it could be those looks that make you afraid through actions and gestures that scare you, threats of physical harm, smashing things and destroying property, displaying weapons as a form of intimidation, threatening suicide if the relationship is ended, and that's a form of manipulation, threatening to destroy things, hurting pets or a family member, blackmailing a partner with illegal activities or getting in trouble about school, alcohol, drugs, etc., threatening to leave, threatening to tell parents information about that they don't want them to know, whether it's true or not. And using ultimatums like you do this or else X, Y, or Z will happen. So let's take a look at another spoke in our tire called emotional abuse. And this is relating to someone's emotions. Emotional abuse will involve any action or lack of action that is meant to control or demean you. You can heal from physical abuse, but emotional abuse can have lasting effects that can last years and do extensive damage emotionally, and it may take years of therapy and counseling to work through. What exactly does emotional abuse look like in a relationship, and some red flags? Putting you down, making you feel bad about yourself, name calling, making you think you're crazy, playing mind games, humiliating you, making you feel guilty, making fun of your appearance and activities in the way of your clothes, weight, hair, classes that you're taking, extracurricular activities, your religion, grades, friends, family, etc. Making you feel guilty for causing relationship problems, blaming you for the poor academic performance, spreading rumors, lies about your partner, downplaying or normalizing the abuse, saying that didn't hurt, or that didn't happen, blaming partner for abusive actions, pressuring partner into sex by humiliating them about sexual experience or inexperience, insisting their extracurricular activities are more important. Another form of abuse or a red flag is isolation. So isolation is a complete separation off from others, and that could be family or friends or even coworkers. What does isolation look like in relationship, and what are some red flags? Controlling who the partner can spend time with, who they see and talk to, pressuring partner to choose between him or her and their family or friends, preventing partner from going home and seeing family or friends, pressuring partner to quit job or activities, getting in between partner and their parents, creating a wedge between partner and friends, forcing partner to live with him or her by sabotaging attempts to find housing, ruining partner's relationships with current roommates, and that's if you're in college, forcing partner to violate resident hall policies if you're in college, so limiting your outside involvement, using jealousy to justify their actions. Those are just some forms of bad behaviors. Let's look at another one, minimizing, denying, and blaming. Minimizing is decreasing or keeping down and diminishing your concerns and making them seem smaller than what they are. Denying is refusing the truth, and then blaming is assigning responsibility and fault to someone else. So what does that look like in a relationship, and what are some red flags? Making light of the abuse and not taking your concerns about it seriously. Saying the abuse didn't happen. Shifting responsibility for abusive behavior and saying that you caused it. Turning everything around on the victim and shifting blame, saying they caused it. This type of abuse from the abuser will make you seem like you're going crazy, minimizing the abuse like it never happened. It is so psychological. It can really mess with your mental state. So another spoke in our tire is called using children in reproduction. We see both men and women use this tactic, and it is a form of abuse. Not only does it affect the victim, but it affects the children for years to come. So what does this look like in a relationship? Making you feel guilty about the children, telling you that you are bad, and that may be in front of the children. Making you feel bad as a parent and telling you that the children need a two-parent home. Threatening to hurt the children. Using the children to relay messages back and forth. Using visitation to harass you. Threatening to take the children away. Sabotaging birth control or forced pregnancies to impact work or to limit freedom and keeping you at home. So anytime the children are placed in the middle of relaying messages back and forth, or forced to choose a parent, or being made to feel guilty for loving the other parent, is a form of abuse and will have lasting effects on the children. So children should never be placed in the middle to play the adult role in a relationship. we just need to let children be children. And sometimes I know that that's hard because I've been through divorce myself, and using visitation, I've been guilty of that, and my children have faced the consequences of that. And so I know that that's really, really hard. Another form is economic abuse. Economic is relating to the economy. So what does that look like, especially during this COVID crisis? What are some major red flags? So it's preventing you from getting or keeping a job. Let me back up. I think I went too far. It's not letting me back up. So I'm sorry. Economic abuse is preventing you from getting or keeping a job. If you lost your job, hang on just a minute. Let me try to go back and fix this. Okay. That way, if you need to take notes, you can do that. Whoops, didn't mean to go that far. Back. Okay, economic abuse. That's preventing partner from keeping a job. If you lost your job during this COVID crisis and need another one, they could be using the COVID as an excuse to keep you home and from getting out and finding a job, so that they can control what you do. Making partner ask for money, giving partner an allowance, blaming partner for any financial gaps, taking partner's money, not letting partner know about or have access to family income by limiting or removing access. Okay, with economic abuse, you have no say where the money goes or how to use it. Let's take another look at, let's take a look at another spoke in the tire or red flag called dominance. This is a special right or advantage over someone. So what does that look like in a relationship, and what are some red flags? Treating partner like a servant, making all the big decisions, acting like the master of the castle, being the only one to define partner roles, abuse of privilege hierarchy, and that is always ranking above another partner. Sometimes we don't recognize this at the beginning of a relationship because we've wanted a partner for so long in our lives, and we tend to kind of overlook those first big signs of dominance. So let's take it another one. Take a look at another one, coercion and threats. Coercion is the practice of persuading someone to do something by using force or threats. Well, what does that look like in a relationship, and what are some red flags to look out for? Making and or carrying out threats to do something to hurt or harm partner. Threatening to leave or commit suicide, and that's a form of manipulation. Threatening to report partner to welfare or out partner to authorities. Making partner drop charges or do illegal things. And these are just some of the spokes in the power and control wheel. And some of those that we saw in the beginning when I showed the screen, the ones that I'm going to read now aren't listed, but they have very much have a place in that spoke. So a lot of times there's spiritual abuse, and this is manipulating religious texts to demand obedience. Taking scripture out of context to justify beatings or limit physical movement. Coerce partner to have sex by citing it is their God-given right. And there have been lots of men or women that have used the Bible and taken it out of context to justify their behaviors. Okay, let's talk about cultural abuse. Some red flags are acceptance of in-law abuse, and that would be physical, emotional, and financial. Using cultural norms as a tool to limit physical movement, justify beating or demand subservience. They might limit the role of the woman to wife and mother and prevent them from working. Prevent partner from possibly remarrying by accusations of adultery to impact their honor and or chastity, and that is abstaining from any from an unlawful or all sexual intercourse. They may also use immigration status, threatening deportation of partner and their children, report to the Immigration and Naturalization Service, that's the INS. They may not fill out their paperwork to file for citizenship or permanent status. Intentionally withdraw paperwork once it's been filed to jeopardize legal status. Not allowing partner to learn English, and isolation from anyone that speaks their language. Another form of bad behavior would be possessiveness and harassment. And some of those red flags, maybe following partner or showing up uninvited wherever partner is at home, maybe work or dinner if you're out with a friend, stalking, constantly calling, sexting, texting, messaging when you're apart, jealousy and framing jealousy as a sign of love. And I know that in a new relationship, sometimes jealousy feels good because it makes a partner feel they're wanted, men and women both alike. But you want that, and that's not a healthy sign. You want there to be trust in a relationship, whether you're going out with your friends, you want your partner to trust you, or whether they're going out with their friends, you want to be able to trust them. So jealousy and framing jealousy as a sign of love is not a healthy sign. Monitoring or hacking into phone, email, Facebook, etc., to control communication. Accusations of cheating, and this is where trust really comes into play. You want to be able to trust your partner, and you want them to be able to trust you as well. Continuing contact after relationship has ended. Posting or distributing revealing photos without permission. And we go into the schools and talk to sixth graders all the time, and we've found that a lot of sixth graders will take pictures and send them out over text, thinking it's going to go to one person and they're not going to share it. But what happens when they get upset or mad, they will retaliate a lot of the times, and they will send those pictures out amongst the whole class. And so we really strongly advise against that, because once the picture's taken and it's out there for everyone to see. So try to be careful of what pictures you allow others to take of you. Manipulation, another form, is manipulation and limiting independence. And this is using anger or the silent treatment as punishment for not obeying. They may be controlling finances, using financial power as blackmail. You owe me because I paid your trip to this such and such place, or you can't leave me because I paid for X, Y, and Z. Requiring permission for activities or spending money. Determining what clothes or activities partner can wear or not wear. Monitoring alcohol or drug intake, limiting or forcing partner to intake more than they want. And this could deal with prescription drugs. Treating partner like a child and making all the decisions in their relationship. Okay, we have academic abuse, and this really focuses in on those college age kids. Might be transferring into partners' classes or discussions to monitor them, causing academics to suffer by controlling class attendance, keeping partner home from class to isolate from friends and teachers, undermining academic status, grades, or intelligence, telling them that they aren't smart enough to be in college, checking on grades, assignments without permission, deliberately starting fights the night before an exam to affect academic success, and preventing partner from applying for jobs and or internships. So these are some very big flags for academic college girls and guys. If this is happening to you, reevaluate that relationship quickly. And then we have the obvious actions and behaviors that constitute domestic violence and sexual assault, and the first being physical abuse. And that would be hitting, punching, slapping, kicking, pushing, pulling hair, biting, tripping or grabbing a partner, putting hands around throat and cutting off their air supply, throwing objects, punching in doors or walls, destroying valuables and sentimental items, hurting partner and pets, standing in doorway, not allowing partner to leave. And then we have sexual abuse. And this is deliberately causing, and this can go back to the reproduction, deliberately causing pregnancy to kind of keep you in their control, using drugs and alcohol to get sex, making comparisons to past partners, flirting with others to make partner feel inadequate in sexual relationships and to cause jealousy as well, rape, pressuring or forcing partner to engage in sexual activity, including makeup sex after beating the partner, controlling choices after abortion, birth control or STI screening, forces sex when you are sick, forces unwanted sex acts, refuses to accept no or forcing sex against your will, using objects or weapons during sex, committing sadistic sexual acts and anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, then forcing sex in front of others, or forcing sex with others. Those are all forms of sexual abuse. So now that we've talked about the power and control behaviors, let's talk about equality. And these are what our goals should be. And it's opposite of the power and control relationship. So a good, healthy relationship will be based on equality. So what does that look like in a relationship? And we're going to give you some spokes in the wheel so that you can have some clear indicators of a healthy relationship. In the equality wheel, there's not going to be a perfect relationship because everyone gets upset and angry. But there are actually some good, healthy ways to communicate and resolve those underlying issues that you may be having without being abusive. So we want to look for some healthy indicators of what a good relationship looks like. And in that equality wheel, we're going to look at some great relationship goals, such as non-threatening behavior, respect, trust and support, honesty and accountability, responsible parenting, economic partnership, shared responsibility, negotiation, and fairness. And before I met my husband, this is my husband of 24 years now, and we dated for 2 years, I sat down and made a list of what I wanted in relationships. So what I would suggest is you make a list of the things that you want in a relationship and don't sway from that. I did that. I had prayed that God would set them on my doorstep if he wanted me to find someone, and that's exactly what happened. I met my husband on my doorstep, thought he had a really cute face, but really skinny legs, but I got to know his heart. We became friends and I got to know his heart, and he had all of these qualities. And I eventually, after 2 years, fell in love with him and then married him. And so we've been together for 24 years. So I pray that that's what will happen to you as well. So what to look for in equality in that non-threatening behavior is talking and acting so that partner feels safe and comfortable expressing themselves and doing things, allowed to be yourself without threat or worry about retaliation. They accept your friends and family and allow you to freely be around them. The respect, this is a big one. Listening to partner non-judgmentally, being emotionally affirming and understanding, valuing your opinions, and respecting and valuing your decisions. Trust and support, and what that looks like is supporting your goals in life, respecting your right to own your feelings, friends, activities, and opinions, letting you have the freedom to do those things that bring you joy, and trusting you when you are out with your friends and family. Let's look at honesty and accountability. These are all good signs of a healthy relationship. Accepting responsibility for yourself or for themselves, acknowledging past use of violence, they admit when they're wrong, and communicate openly and truthfully. So you can be open and honest with them without any kind of retaliation. Okay, let's look at responsible parenting. Sharing parental responsibilities, being a positive, nonviolent role model for the children, not putting children in the middle of your relationship and letting them be kids. And a lot of times me and my husband have 6 kids together. When they were wanted something, me and my husband were on the same page. We didn't have one, because kids will use parents against one another. So we were on the same page as far as discipline goes, as far as um, uh, gifts go, and getting to do things. They didn't go to one parent and say, "Hey, mom said, I could do this," and because kids are really good about knowing who they can control and who they can't. So be on the same page. Next, we have economic partnership, and that may look like making money decisions together, making sure both partners benefit from financial arrangements. Shared responsibility would be mutually agreeing on a fair distribution of work. Maybe that's around the house, or just wherever out in the yard, it doesn't matter. Making family decisions together, and that includes the big ones. Negotiation and fairness, that looks like seeking mutually satisfying resolutions to conflict, accepting change, and being willing to compromise. So as advocates, we respect confidentiality. Confidentiality is of utmost importance to us, and this is essential to building trust and ensuring the victim's safety. So discussing the possibility of victimization must occur in private. A victim of domestic violence abuse will not typically disclose a history of violence in the presence of their perpetrator or other family members, so that's why we like to get them by themselves. And if they disclose the violence in the perpetrator's presence, it's likely that they will suffer retaliation. So as you see on the screen, advocating for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, as advocates, we respect your confidentiality. We believe and validate the experience of the victims. We listen and acknowledge the victim's feelings. We acknowledge injustice. We respect victims' autonomy in making their own decisions. We help victims plan for their future safety, and we promote access to community service. So as advocates, we also help plan for their future safety. We ask questions about what they have tried in the past to keep themselves safe. Is it working? Do they have a place to go if they need to escape? What are the victim's options? Do they want to go home, to the home of a friend or family member, or to a local safe house or shelter? And what have they done to protect themselves in the past? If they're returning home to their partner, can they plan for a quick escape should the violence begin again? And can they call law enforcement officials for protection? We make ourselves aware with familiar resources in our communities as well. So we want to inform the victims of available services for additional assistance that they might need. And I'm going to end on this little poem that's really heart-wrenching, and then I'm going to answer any questions that you may have. So this is a poem that we share with a lot of our clients. It's called "I Got Flowers Today." I got flowers today. It wasn't my birthday or any special day. We had our first argument last night. He said a lot of cruel things that really hurt me. I know he didn't mean the things he said because he sent flowers today. I got flowers today. It wasn't our anniversary or any other special day. Last night he threw me into a wall and started to choke me. It seemed like a nightmare. I couldn't believe it was real. I woke up this morning sore and bruised all over. I know he must be sorry because he sent me flowers today. I got flowers today. It wasn't Mother's Day or any other special day. Last night he beat me up again. It was much worse than all of the other times. If I leave him, what will I do? What would people say? I'm afraid of him and I'm afraid to leave. But I know he must be sorry because he sent me flowers today. I got a dozen roses today. It's no special day. I just caught him messing around with another woman. I yelled at him and he gave me a black eye. I got flowers today. Today is a special day. It's the day of my funeral. I can rest now. My little children are crying. God will take care of them. Last night he finally killed me. He beat me to death and then shot himself. He's expected to make it, but I am gone. If only I had gathered enough courage and strength to leave him, I wouldn't have gotten flowers today. So now I'm going to kind of get out of this if I can and go to any questions that you may have. Let's see. Okay. Another form of economic abuse that I missed is forcing partners to take out loans and credit, threatening to call in immigration. That's a very good one. And then someone said that they tell the kids in their class, if a friend asks for your password as a sign of trust, tell them that's not how trust is formed. That's exactly right. That's what we tell the sixth graders when we go into the and talk about bullying. We don't let anyone have our passwords because they can turn on one another. You know, you may be friends one day, but the next day you're in a fight. And what happens? They have all your passwords. They have access to all your pictures and can send them out to everyone. So that's a big form of abuse and bullying. So if there's not any more questions, I will go ahead and close. I want to thank each one of you for being on here today, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And I appreciate every one of you. If you have a question or comment, just let me know.